Hey everyone, welcome back. I hope you're all doing well. So today we are heading to Argentina, and I need to warn you right now, this case absolutely haunted me for days after I first heard about it. This is the story of 21-year-old Catalina Gutierrez. Beautiful, talented, with hundreds of thousands of followers across social media. She had her whole life ahead of her. But then she made one friend. Just one friend at university, a guy named Nestor Soto, and that one friendship would end her life in the most brutal way imaginable, because Nestor was hiding something dark, something terrifying, and Catalina had absolutely no idea what was coming. So let's jump in. It's February 2021, and Catalina Gutierrez just started university in Cordoba, Argentina. She's 18 years old, studying architecture, following in her father's footsteps. She's excited about this new chapter, and on her very first day of class, she meets this guy, Nestor Soto. He's also studying architecture. He's from out of town, doesn't know anyone in the city. He seems nice, a bit quiet, a bit awkward, but nice. And Catalina, being the kind person she is, she takes him under her wing. She starts sitting next to him in class, helping him with notes, giving him rides to campus because he doesn't have a car, just being a good friend, just being Catalina. And I need you to understand something about Catalina before we go any further, because what happens to her is so unbelievably unfair. Catalina was genuinely one of the good ones. She grew up in Cordoba with her parents Nora and Marcelo and her older sister Lucia. Close-knit family, loving family. Her dad was an architect, her mom stayed home to raise the girls. And Catalina and her sister, oh my God, they were best friends. Not just sisters, actual best friends who did everything together and never fought. That's rare. That's special. Catalina also had this massive passion for music from a young age. She could sing, play guitar, and she was genuinely talented. Not just influencer talented, where everything is auto-tuned. Actually talented. She would perform in local bars and restaurants around Cordoba. She inherited this love of music from her dad, and they would perform duets together all the time. It's actually so sweet when you see the videos. They clearly adored each other. And Catalina had been posting on social media since she was about 11 years old. At first, just normal kid stuff. Pictures with her dad, videos of her playing guitar, regular teenage content. But over the years, her following just started to grow organically. She wasn't trying to be famous. She was just being herself, posting about her life, and people were drawn to her. By the time she started university, she had over 100,000 followers on Instagram and 60,000 on TikTok. She was doing brand deals, getting paid to post, traveling, living what looked like an absolute dream life. She also had a boyfriend at this time, a guy named Lazaro. They'd been together since they were teenagers. Sweet couple, nothing dramatic, just two kids who really liked each other. So that's Catalina, good person, talented, successful, happy, close with her family, in a relationship, everything going right. Now let's talk about Nestor Soto, because this is where things get dark. Very dark. Nestor was born December 20th, 2002, making him about 3 months older than Catalina. He grew up in Bariloche, which is about a 20-hour drive from Cordoba, completely different part of Argentina. And his childhood, not great. His dad walked out on the family when Nestor was just 2 years old. Just left and never really came back. His mom had to work constantly to support them, so Nestor was raised primarily by his grandmother. His uncle eventually became kind of a father figure. So yeah, rough childhood, absent parents. That's tough for any kid. But despite all that, Nestor was described by teachers as a model student. Good grades, polite, bright future ahead of him. His grandmother was incredibly proud of him, and when he turned 18, he packed up and moved to Cordoba for university. Architecture program, fresh start, new city, new life. And on the surface, Nestor seemed fine, normal even. Maybe a bit socially awkward, but nothing alarming, nothing that would make you think, oh, this guy is dangerous. But here's what Catalina didn't know. Here's what nobody at that university knew when Nestor showed up. Nestor had a past, a very disturbing past, a pattern of behavior that had been escalating for years. Back in high school, Nestor had become obsessed with a girl in his class, completely obsessed. He told her he was in love with her, just walked up to her one day between classes and declared his love like they were in some kind of romantic movie. She was shocked. She barely knew this guy. They'd never even had a real conversation. She rejected him as politely as she could. She said she wasn't interested, that she just saw him as a classmate. She was gentle about it, trying not to hurt his feelings. And Nestor, he became an absolute nightmare for this poor girl. Like a switch had been flipped in his brain. He started following her everywhere around the school. In the hallways between classes, outside her classrooms waiting for her to come out, in the cafeteria during lunch, even though they didn't have the same lunch period. Everywhere she went, there he was, just standing there, watching her. It was constant, relentless. He would touch her without permission, just reach out and put his hand on her arm when she walked by, touch her shoulder from behind, play with her hair when she was sitting in front of him. She would jerk away, tell him to stop, but he'd just do it again the next day. He was violating her personal space constantly, and he knew she didn't like it. He could see her discomfort, but he didn't care. He started waiting for her after school by the school gates. She'd come out and there he was, wanting to walk her home. She'd say no. She'd tell him her mom was picking her up, or she was walking with friends, any excuse. But he wouldn't leave. He'd just follow her anyway, walking a few steps behind her down the street. She started having friends walk her places just so she wouldn't be alone with him. He would send her messages constantly, texts at all hours. 2 a.m, he's texting her. During class, her phone is buzzing with his messages. After she'd block his number, he'd message from different numbers. She blocked him on social media, he'd create new accounts. There was no escape from him. And he would say the most inappropriate things to her. Sexual things, romantic things, obsessive things. He'd tell her he loved her, that they were meant to be together, that she just needed to give him a chance and she'd see how perfect they were for each other. She would tell him clearly, firmly, I am not interested. Please leave me alone. But those words meant nothing to him. He literally could not accept the word no. This went on for months. Months of this girl living in fear at school. Months of being followed, being touched, being harassed. She was losing sleep over it. She was anxious all the time. She didn't want to go to school anymore because she knew he'd be there. Finally, she'd had enough. She went to the school administration. She sat down with a counselor and explained everything. The following, the touching, the constant messages, the fact that she felt unsafe. She even had screenshots of some of the messages he'd sent her. Evidence. You know what the school counselor said to her? Boys sometimes don't know how to express their feelings properly. He probably just really likes you and doesn't know how to show it. It's just a boy thing. He'll grow out of it eventually. Just try to ignore him and he'll get bored and move on to someone else. Just ignore him. Like it was her responsibility to deal with being stalked and harassed. Like it was normal. Like boys stalking girls is just something that happens and girls just have to put up with it. No detention for Nestor, no suspension, no talking to his parents, nothing. Absolutely nothing was done. So Nestor learned something very valuable that day. He learned that he could stalk and harass girls and there would be no consequences. None. The adults who were supposed to protect students from this kind of behavior were telling him it was okay. Boys will be boys, right? And it didn't stop with just that one girl. Oh no, that was just the beginning. Because after a few months, Nestor moved on to a different girl, a new target, a new obsession. And the pattern repeated itself all over again. Following her around school, touching her without consent, sending constant messages, not taking no for an answer. This girl also reported him, and once again, nothing happened. He's just awkward. He doesn't understand social cues. He'll grow out of it. And then another girl, and then another. Nestor would cycle through different girls in his high school, becoming intensely obsessed with each one for a period of time before moving on to the next. And every single time when these girls complained, they were dismissed. They were told they were overreacting, that it wasn't that serious, that boys are just like that sometimes. And when these girls would reject Nestor, he would turn vicious, absolutely vicious. He would start saying horrible, disgusting things about them. He was incredibly misogynistic. He'd walk past them in the hallways and mutter insults under his breath, call them sluts, call them bitches, make comments about their bodies, about their appearance. He'd call them fat, ugly, say no one would ever want them. Just cruel, hateful things designed to hurt them as much as possible because they had hurt his ego by rejecting him. He would spread rumors about these girls, sexual rumors. He'd tell people they'd hooked up with him when they hadn't. He'd say they'd sent him nudes, just making up lies to damage their reputations because he was angry they wouldn't date him. And some people believed the rumors because Nestor could be charming when he wanted to be. He knew how to present himself well to people he wasn't obsessed with. The girls would hear these rumors and be mortified. They'd confront Nestor, demanding he stop spreading lies about them, and he'd just smile. He'd act like he had no idea what they were talking about. He'd gaslight them, make them feel crazy for even suggesting he'd do something like that. And the school administration? They did nothing. Even when multiple girls were coming forward with similar complaints about the same person, even when there was clearly a pattern of predatory behavior, they did nothing. They protected Nestor instead of protecting his victims. So Nestor's behavior escalated. Of course it escalated. Why wouldn't it? He learned that he was essentially untouchable, that he could do whatever he wanted to girls and no one would stop him. And then came the camping trip. The school organized this outdoor education trip where students would go camping in the mountains for 3 days, sleep in tents, do hiking activities, that kind of thing. And Nestor went on this trip. There was a girl on the trip that Nestor was currently obsessed with. She'd been trying to avoid him all day during the hikes and activities, but it's hard to avoid someone when you're all camping together in a relatively small area. Night comes, everyone is exhausted from hiking all day. Students go to their separate tents to sleep. The teachers are in their own tents some distance away. It's dark, it's quiet, everyone is sleeping, and Nestor, in the middle of the night, unzips his tent. He walks across the campsite to where the girls' tents are set up. He knows which tent his current obsession is sleeping in because he'd been watching earlier to see which one she went into. He unzips her tent as quietly as he can. He crawls inside. This girl is sleeping. She has no idea he's there. And Nestor climbs on top of her. He's on top of this sleeping girl. His hands are on her. She wakes up to find him there in the darkness, invading her space in the most terrifying way. She immediately starts screaming as loud as she can. "Get off me! Help! Someone help!" Nestor panics. He realizes people are going to hear her screaming. So he scrambles away from her and runs out of the tent as fast as he can. He runs back to his own tent and gets inside like nothing happened. Other students start coming out of their tents because they heard the screaming. Teachers come running. The girl is sobbing, terrified, shaking. She tells them what happened, that Nestor came into her tent and approached her while she was sleeping. Let's be absolutely clear about what was happening there. That was an attempted assault, a deeply violating attack. If that girl hadn't woken up and screamed, God only knows what Nestor would have done to her. He had snuck into her tent in the middle of the night and approached her sleeping form. What do you think his intentions were? He wasn't there to have a conversation. The girl wants to call the police, she wants to press charges, but the teachers convince her not to. They say it will be too complicated, too much drama, that it will ruin the rest of the trip for everyone. They say they'll handle it when they get back to school. When they get back to school, the girl reports what happened to the principal. She tells them everything. She demands that Nestor be expelled, that he be arrested. This isn't just harassment anymore. This is a serious assault. You know what the school did? They gave him a 3-day suspension. 3 days. For sneaking into a girl's tent and approaching her while she was sleeping. 3 days at home playing video games. That was his punishment. They told the girl that they couldn't prove what his intentions were. That maybe he was sleepwalking. That maybe it was a misunderstanding. That maybe he went into the wrong tent by accident in the dark. They made excuse after excuse for him. They didn't expel him. They didn't call the police. They swept it under the rug just like they'd swept everything else under the rug. And the message they sent to Nestor was crystal clear. You can do whatever you want. Even if you literally approach a sleeping girl in the dead of night, the worst that will happen is a few days off school. The girl was traumatized. She didn't feel safe at school anymore. She started having panic attacks. She couldn't sleep properly because she kept reliving waking up to find him invading her space. Her parents eventually transferred her to a different school because she couldn't handle being in the same building as Nestor anymore. And Nestor? He just moved on to his next target, his next obsession. Because why wouldn't he? There were never any real consequences for his actions. The system had failed every single girl he'd targeted, and it would continue to fail them. So by the time Nestor showed up at university in Cordoba, he had years of experience stalking, harassing, and assaulting women. And he had learned that there would never be consequences for his actions. And now he's sitting next to Catalina in architecture class. So Catalina and Nestor become friends. Close friends, actually. She's giving him rides every day. They're studying together, exchanging notes, and Catalina even invites Nestor over to her family home. He starts spending evenings there, having dinner with the family, and everyone loves him. Her parents love him. Her sister likes him. He even sings duets with Catalina's dad. He seems like such a nice guy, such a good friend for their daughter to have. Catalina's boyfriend Lazaro comes over a lot too, and there's no jealousy, no weirdness. Why would there be? They're just friends. That's all they are. Except that's not all they are. At least not in Nestor's mind. Because here's what Catalina doesn't know. Here's the secret Nestor is keeping. Nestor is completely obsessed with Catalina. Utterly, totally obsessed. In his mind, they're not just friends. Not at all. He's in love with her. He fantasizes about being in a relationship with her constantly. It consumes his thoughts every single day. He spends hours upon hours scrolling through her Instagram, her TikTok, looking at every photo, every video, over and over again. He watches her singing videos on repeat. He zooms in on pictures of her face. He's essentially online stalking her. That's all he does on social media, just obsess over Catalina. And he writes these private notes on his phone, love notes that he never sends her. Pages and pages of obsessive writing. Things like, I don't know how I got so much affection for you. How did things turn out this way? Why can't you see me the way I see you? He refers to himself as the invisible friend. He writes that she looks right through him like he's not even there. The level of delusion in these notes is honestly frightening. And Nestor starts spending every possible moment with Catalina. Every time she has free time, there he is. He's constantly asking her for rides here, there, everywhere, just to occupy her time, to be near her. And Catalina, being the genuinely good person she is, she never says no. She knows he doesn't have anyone else in the city. She wants to be a good friend. Catalina has absolutely no idea about any of this. None. In her mind, they're just really close friends. That's it. And Nestor keeps his obsession completely secret because he knows Catalina has a boyfriend. And if he confesses his feelings while she's in a relationship, she'll reject him. So he's just waiting, biding his time, waiting for her and Lazaro to break up. Then he'll swoop in and they'll finally be together. That's his plan. But Catalina wasn't Nestor's first obsession at university. Oh no. Before he fixated on Catalina, there were others. And what he did to these women shows exactly what Catalina was dealing with, even if she didn't know it yet. Somehow, Nestor managed to get a girlfriend early in his first year at university, a young woman named Julia. And at first, Julia thought Nestor seemed sweet. A bit awkward, a bit clingy, but she thought that was kind of endearing. He seemed like he really liked her. They started dating. It was exciting, a new relationship at university. But very quickly, Julia realized that something was very, very wrong with Nestor. He became incredibly controlling almost immediately after they made their relationship official. He wanted to know where she was every single minute of every single day. He'd text her constantly throughout the day asking where she was, who she was with, what she was doing, where are you, who's that, when will you be done, are there guys there? If she didn't respond within a few minutes, he'd send more messages, multiple messages. Hello, why aren't you answering? What are you doing that you can't text me back? Dozens and dozens of messages every single day. He would show up places completely unannounced. Julia would be studying in the library with a group of classmates, and suddenly there's Nestor, pulling up a chair, inserting himself into the group even though he hadn't been invited. She'd be getting coffee with a friend, and there's Nestor walking through the door. Oh wow, what a coincidence. Mind if I join? She'd tell him she was going to the gym, and somehow he'd show up at the gym 20 minutes later. I decided to work out too. It was happening constantly, multiple times a week. He always seemed to know where she was. And he did know. Julia later discovered that Nestor had figured out a way to track her phone location without her knowledge. She doesn't know exactly how he did it, whether he installed some kind of tracking app on her phone when she wasn't looking, or if he somehow got access to her Apple ID passwords. She's not sure. But he was definitely tracking her. He always knew her exact location. He would sometimes even tell her, I can see you're at the mall right now, when she hadn't told him she was going to the mall. It was terrifying once she figured it out. He was also insanely, pathologically jealous. If Julia talked to another guy, any guy at all, even just a completely innocent, casual conversation with a male classmate about homework assignments, Nestor would get visibly angry. His jaw would clench, his whole demeanor would change. He'd walk over and physically insert himself between them. Later, he'd accuse Julia of flirting. I saw the way you were looking at him. I saw you laughing at his jokes. Are you interested in him? Do you think he's better than me? She'd try to explain that it was just a normal conversation, that she wasn't flirting with anyone, that she was faithful to him. But he wouldn't believe her. He'd give her the silent treatment for days or send her long, angry text messages about how she was disrespecting their relationship and disrespecting him. He tried to control what Julia wore. He'd look at her outfits before they went out and make comments. That skirt is pretty short, don't you think? That top is kind of low cut. Are you trying to get attention from other guys? Why do you need to dress like that if you're just with me? He wanted her to dress more modestly, more covered up. He even tried to control who she was friends with. He didn't like her hanging out with certain people, especially male friends she'd had since before they started dating. He'd try to pressure her to stop being friends with them. If you really loved me, you wouldn't need other guy friends. I should be enough for you. Julia started to feel completely suffocated in this relationship. She felt like she couldn't breathe. She couldn't do anything without Nestor questioning her, doubting her, showing up, trying to control her. Every single aspect of her life was being monitored and controlled by him. And she realized this wasn't normal. This wasn't what healthy relationships looked like. This was actually really scary. She was scared of him, scared of his reactions, scared of his jealousy, scared of what he might do. So after a few months of this, Julia broke up with him. She told him it wasn't working out, that they weren't compatible, that they needed to end things. She tried to be kind about it, but firm. And Nestor did not take it well at all, not even remotely well. He started calling her phone constantly, back-to-back calls. She'd decline one call and he'd immediately call again. She'd block his number and he'd call from different numbers. Friends' phones, random numbers, calling and calling and calling. She'd decline all the calls and he'd leave long, rambling voicemails. Some of them were begging. Please take me back. I love you so much. I can't live without you. You're my everything. We're perfect together. Just give me another chance. His voice would be shaking, sometimes crying. Some messages were angry. How could you do this to me? After everything I did for you, after all the time I invested in you, you're going to regret this. You're making the biggest mistake of your life. His voice would be cold, threatening even. Some were emotionally manipulative. I'm so depressed without you. I can barely get out of bed. I don't know if I can go on living like this. If something happens to me, it will be your fault. You'll have to live with that. Then the social media harassment started, and this went on for months. Nestor created multiple fake Instagram accounts, multiple fake Facebook profiles, multiple fake accounts on every platform Julia was on, and he used these accounts to message her, to comment on her posts, to harass her endlessly. She'd block one account, and the very next day, there'd be a new one. Then another, then another. It felt never ending. Some of the messages were long paragraphs begging her to reconsider, telling her how much he missed her, listing all the reasons they should be together, promising he'd change, he'd be better, he'd be whatever she wanted him to be. Some messages were cruel, calling her names, saying she was a terrible person, saying no one else would ever love her like he did, saying she'd end up alone and miserable and she'd realize too late what she gave up. Some messages were just bizarre, random song lyrics that he thought applied to their situation, long philosophical rants about love and destiny, screenshots of their old conversations with hearts added to them. He'd comment on her Instagram posts from these fake accounts. If she posted a picture with friends, he'd comment things like, "You look happier without me. I guess I meant nothing to you." Or, "I see you've moved on quickly. Nice to know what I meant to you." If she posted anything at all, he'd find a way to make it about their failed relationship. Julia had to block literally dozens of fake accounts. She kept a list at one point and counted over 40 different accounts that she'd blocked that she was certain were Nestor. It went on for weeks and weeks. She told her friends about it. She told her parents. She showed them the messages. Everyone agreed it was psychotic behavior. But she didn't go to the police because, honestly, what would they do? He was just sending messages, right? He hadn't physically threatened her. He hadn't shown up at her house. And based on everything she'd heard about how authorities handle this kind of thing, she didn't have much faith that the police would take it seriously or do anything meaningful about it. Eventually, after months of this, Nestor did finally stop. But Julia knows it's only because he'd found a new target, a new girl to obsess over. He hadn't stopped because he'd moved on emotionally or realized his behavior was wrong. He stopped because he'd transferred his obsession to someone else. And Julia felt guilty about that. She felt guilty that some other girl was now dealing with what she dealt with. After Julia, there was a string of other girls at university that Nestor became fixated on. And this is where it gets really, really disturbing. The female students that Nestor was obsessing over, he had all of their class schedules written on his bedroom wall. I wish I was making this up, but I'm not. This is real. Literally written on his wall in his bedroom, like he was running some kind of surveillance operation. He would somehow find out what classes they were taking, maybe by asking mutual friends, maybe by looking over their shoulders when they were checking their schedules on their phones, maybe by just following them around and noting where they went at what times. And then he would write down their entire weekly schedule on his wall. Monday, 9 a.m., biology, room 302. Monday, 11 a.m., English literature, room 115. Monday, 2 p.m., psychology, room 208. Like that, in detail, for multiple different girls, all posted on his bedroom wall like he was tracking targets, like they were missions. It's absolutely insane. And he would use these schedules to stalk them around campus. He would know exactly where they'd be at any given time, and he'd just show up in that location. A girl would walk out of her biology lecture, and there's Nestor leaning against the wall in the hallway, looking at his phone like he just happened to be there. "Oh, hey, what a coincidence running into you. How was class?" It wasn't a coincidence. There were no coincidences with Nestor. He'd planned it. He'd been waiting for her. He'd timed it perfectly. He'd time his movements around campus to accidentally bump into his current obsession multiple times throughout the day. First thing in the morning before classes started, between morning and afternoon classes, at lunchtime, after classes ended. Always acting surprised to see them. Always acting like fate kept bringing them together. We keep running into each other. Maybe it's a sign. But it wasn't fate. It wasn't luck. It wasn't random at all. It was calculated, planned, methodical, predatory. Girls started noticing that Nestor always seemed to be wherever they were. It was happening too frequently to be normal coincidence. They'd mention it to their friends. "That Nestor guy is so weird. He's always around. Every time I turn around, there he is. It's kind of creepy." Some of them started actively taking different routes to their classes just to try to avoid him. They'd leave lectures through different exits. They'd take longer routes that were out of the way. Anything to avoid the hallways and paths where they knew Nestor would be waiting. But they didn't report him to university administration, because what would they even say? "This guy is in the same places as me on campus sometimes." It's a university. There are thousands of students. People are around. You see the same people multiple times. How do you prove someone is deliberately stalking you when they can just say it's coincidence? And besides, they'd all heard stories from other girls about reporting guys for harassment and absolutely nothing being done about it. The authorities don't take it seriously until something violent happens. So they just tried their best to avoid him and hoped he'd lose interest and leave them alone eventually. There was one of Catalina's friends in particular that Nestor became obsessed with before he fully fixated on Catalina herself. This friend, let's call her Maria to protect her identity, Nestor would absolutely not leave her alone. He was constantly trying to talk to her, always trying to sit near her in any shared classes, always asking her to study together, always asking her to hang out after class, always asking her on dates. Maria would politely decline every time. She'd make excuses. "I'm busy this weekend. I have a ton of homework to catch up on. I'm not really interested in dating anyone right now." Clear, polite rejections that any reasonable person would understand and accept. But Nestor would not accept them. He just kept asking. The next day, he'd ask again. The next week, he'd ask again. He would not take no for an answer. He'd act like every rejection was just a temporary setback, and if he just kept trying, eventually she'd say yes. He'd send Maria long messages on Instagram and Facebook telling her how beautiful she was, how he couldn't stop thinking about her, how perfect they'd be together if she'd just give him a chance. He'd write paragraphs analyzing little interactions they'd had, reading meaning into things that weren't there. "I loved the way you smiled at me in class today. I felt such a connection between us." When she wouldn't respond to these messages, he'd send more. "Did you see my last message? What did you think about what I said? Why aren't you responding? Are you mad at me? Did I say something wrong?" Maria started to genuinely dread opening her messages on social media because there would always be something from Nestor. Multiple messages a day. She stopped responding entirely, hoping he'd get the hint and stop. But he didn't stop. He just kept sending them. The messages kept coming and coming and coming. Maria actually told Catalina about this situation. She told Catalina that Nestor was being really persistent and it was making her genuinely uncomfortable. She was asking Catalina for advice on how to get him to stop. And Catalina, not knowing the full extent of Nestor's disturbing history, not knowing about all the girls in high school, not knowing about Julia, thought that Nestor was probably just socially awkward and didn't understand social cues very well. She thought he just didn't know how to take a hint. So Catalina actually talked to Nestor about it. She pulled him aside and said, "Hey, Maria told me you've been messaging her a lot. I think you need to back off a bit. You're coming on too strong and it's making her uncomfortable." And Nestor did back off from Maria after that conversation with Catalina. But he didn't back off because he realized his behavior was inappropriate. He didn't have some moment of self-reflection. He backed off from Maria for one reason only, because he'd started to fixate on Catalina instead. He'd found a new target, and this time, the target was his supposed best friend. This is who Nestor Soto really was. This is the person Catalina thought was her best friend. Now we're moving forward to 2024. Catalina and Nestor have been close friends for a few years now. They're both 21 years old, and something significant happens. Catalina breaks up with her longtime boyfriend, Lazaro. They'd been together since they were teenagers, but you know how it is. Sometimes young relationships just run their course. Nothing dramatic. They just grew apart. And then in February 2024, Catalina starts dating someone new, a guy named Ezekiel. And they become close really quickly. They're spending lots of time together, going on dates, posting cute pictures, just enjoying being a new couple. And Nestor is absolutely furious, like seeing red, rage-filled furious. In his mind, he's been putting in all this time and effort. He's been waiting patiently for years. He put up with Catalina's previous boyfriend, just waiting for them to break up. And now it's supposed to be his turn, his time. He's earned this. How dare she start dating someone else when he's right here? Of course, Catalina had never given him any indication she felt the same way. She'd never led him on, never flirted with him. In her eyes, they were just friends. Best friends, sure, but just friends. She had absolutely no idea how he felt. So Nestor starts making Catalina's life a complete and utter nightmare, an absolute living hell. He constantly, relentlessly puts down her new boyfriend, Ezekiel. Every single time Catalina mentions Ezekiel, Nestor has something negative to say. "I don't know what you see in that guy. He seems really fake to me. I heard some things about him. You should be careful. Are you sure he's actually good for you?" He's always planting seeds of doubt, trying to create problems in their relationship, trying to make Catalina question Ezekiel's intentions or character. And none of it is based on truth. Nestor doesn't actually know anything bad about Ezekiel. He just wants them to break up. He also constantly tells Catalina that she's spending way too much time with Ezekiel and not enough time with him, that she's neglecting their friendship, that she's abandoned him for her boyfriend. He guilt trips her constantly, every single day. "You never have time for me anymore. I barely see you now. You only care about your boyfriend. I guess our friendship doesn't matter to you anymore. I guess I was just a placeholder until someone better came along." He makes her feel terrible about having a boyfriend and a life outside of their friendship. He makes her feel like she's doing something wrong by having a romantic relationship. Then he starts being openly cruel and vicious to Catalina in public. He begins insulting her in front of other students on campus. He'll see her in the hallway or courtyard and make loud comments. "Oh, look, it's Catalina. Too good for her old friends now?" Or if she walks by with Ezekiel, He'll say things like, "There goes the happy couple," in this really sarcastic, bitter tone that everyone can hear. He calls her a bitch, out loud, on campus, in front of people, multiple times. People who witness this are shocked. They pull Catalina aside and ask her what's going on with Nestor, why he's being so horrible to her. And Catalina makes excuses for him. He's just going through a hard time. He's stressed about school. He doesn't mean it. He starts harassing her in their WhatsApp group chats with their mutual friends. He'll make passive-aggressive comments that are clearly directed at Catalina, even if he doesn't name her directly. Some people really change when they get into a relationship. They forget about the friends who were there for them all along. Everyone in the group chat knows he's talking about Catalina. It's obvious and uncomfortable. He also posts passive-aggressive things on social media that are clearly, transparently directed at her. Song lyrics about betrayal and fake friends. Quotes about how people show their true colors. Vague posts like, "When you realize someone you thought was your best friend doesn't actually care about you at all." And Catalina sees all of this. She knows it's about her. Everyone knows it's about her. And here's something really, really disturbing that shows how far Nestor's obsession had gone. Nestor somehow managed to gain access to Catalina's location through the Find My iPhone app on her phone. Either he convinced her to share her location with him under some innocent pretense, or he figured out her passwords and activated it without her knowledge. But either way, he could now see where she was at all times. And he used this to physically stalk her around the city. He would just show up everywhere Catalina went. She'd be at a cafe with friends, studying, having coffee, and suddenly there's Nestor walking through the door. "Oh wow, you're here! What a coincidence!" It's not a coincidence. He tracked her there. She'd be at the shopping mall buying clothes, and there's Nestor in the same store. "I was just shopping too. Crazy that we're both here." No, not crazy. Calculated. She'd be at the library studying for exams, and there's Nestor sitting at a table nearby, watching her. Everywhere she went, he was there. Her friends started noticing it. It's so weird how Nestor always seems to show up wherever we are. How does he always know where to find us? Catalina is completely torn apart by all of this behavior. She's absolutely devastated. She can't believe that Nestor, someone she considered one of her closest friends in the world, someone she trusted completely, is treating her this way. She's hurt, she's confused, she doesn't understand what she did wrong. She doesn't understand why he's being so cruel to her. And remember, Nestor had spent so much time with her entire family over the years. Her family absolutely loved him. They thought he was wonderful. They trusted him implicitly. They trusted him enough to have him come to their house and watch their dogs when they went on vacation. He was practically a member of the family at this point. They treated him like a son. So this isn't just losing a friend for Catalina. It feels like losing family. So Catalina tries everything she can think of to fix things, to repair the relationship. She tries to make him happy. She tries to give him more attention. She makes extra effort to spend time with him even when she's busy. She invites him to things even when she knows Ezekiel will be there too. She tries desperately, with every fiber of her being, to get back the friend she thought she had. The friend she remembers. The friend she cares about so deeply. And Catalina's other friends are telling her, repeatedly, insistently, this friendship is toxic now. This has become really unhealthy. You need to cut him off completely. You need to block him and stop talking to him. He's not treating you right. This isn't what friendship looks like. They can all see what's happening. They can see how he's manipulating her, how he's treating her terribly, how he's making her miserable. They're worried about her. But Catalina keeps defending Nestor. She keeps making excuses for his behavior. She keeps trying. She keeps hoping that if she just tries hard enough, if she's just a good enough friend, He'll go back to being the person she thought he was, the person she became friends with. She truly believes that person is still in there somewhere. And I think this loyalty, this kindness, this refusal to give up on people, this is exactly why Nestor became so obsessed with Catalina specifically, more obsessed than he'd been with any of the other girls, because every other girl he'd fixated on in the past had rejected him pretty much immediately and distanced themselves from him as soon as they saw red flags. They'd blocked him, avoided him, told him to leave them alone. But Catalina was fundamentally different. She was kind to Nestor, genuinely, authentically kind. She felt sorry for him when they first met because he had moved to a completely new city where he didn't know a single person. He had no family nearby, no friends, no support system. She knew he was lonely and struggling. And Catalina, with her huge heart, took Nestor under her wing. She genuinely wanted to be his friend. She wanted to help him feel less alone. And in Nestor's twisted, delusional, obsessive mind, he interpreted her kindness and compassion as romantic interest. He thought her caring about him meant she must have feelings for him. He thought he actually had a real chance with her. Catalina does try to cut Nestor off a few different times over these months. She really does try. She stops responding to his messages for a few days. She avoids him on campus. She tells him she needs space from their friendship. But Nestor is absolutely relentless. He will not let her go. He will not accept being cut off. He emotionally blackmails her in every way he can think of. He sends her long messages about how depressed he is, how he has no one else, how she's his only friend, how he doesn't know what he'll do if she abandons him. He makes her feel guilty for having boundaries. He makes her feel like a terrible person for trying to protect herself. He makes her feel responsible for his emotional well-being. And every single time, he manages to worm his way back into her life. Every time she caves and lets him back in because she feels too guilty to keep him out. And this entire toxic situation just keeps building and building and building. The tension keeps growing, the pressure keeps mounting, things keep getting worse and worse. Everyone around them can see it. Catalina's friends can see it, her boyfriend Ezekiel can see it, her family is starting to notice that something seems off. Everyone can see that this is heading somewhere bad. Everyone except Catalina, because Catalina still believes deep in her heart that there's good in Nestor, that he's still her friend underneath all this anger and bitterness, that he'll come around eventually, that things will get better. But things aren't going to get better. They're about to get much, much worse. We're now in July 2024. 5 months after Catalina started dating Ezekiel, and we've reached July 17th, 2024, the date that Catalina's family will never forget. Catalina makes plans to go bowling that evening with a group of friends, just a fun, normal night out, and she invites Nestor, because despite everything, despite how he's been treating her, Catalina is loyal. She doesn't want to exclude him, so she invites him to come bowling with everyone. But then Catalina starts getting messages from Nestor. He wants to meet up earlier, an hour before everyone else. He wants one-on-one time with her. This had become his pattern, making demanding requests, guilt-tripping her if she didn't comply. But Catalina agrees. She agrees to meet him at 9 p.m. at the mall, an hour before bowling. So 9 p.m. comes around, Nestor is waiting at the mall, but Catalina doesn't show up at 9. She's running late. And Nestor is immediately furious. He starts blowing up her phone with angry messages. Where are you? Why are you late? How could you do this to me? Catalina finally answers, apologizing profusely. She explains that she was running late because she was working on Instagram content for a sponsored post. She had a brand deal with a deadline. It was actual work. The content just took longer than expected. A completely legitimate reason. But Nestor doesn't care. He doesn't want to hear it. He starts screaming at her over the phone, berating her, making her feel like a terrible person. How dare you stand me up? You're such a bad friend. You don't care about anyone but yourself. Then he tells her he's going home. that she ruined his entire evening, that he doesn't even want to see her anymore, and he hangs up. Catalina feels absolutely terrible, genuinely awful. She actually believes she's been a bad friend, even though she hasn't. Nestor is being completely unreasonable and manipulative. But Catalina, with her kind heart, she just feels guilty. She wants to make things right. So Catalina makes a decision. She gets in her silver Renault Clio and drives to Nestor's house. She wants to apologize in person, to fix things. And this is the moment. This is the moment where everything goes horribly, terribly wrong. When Catalina arrives at Nestor's house, he's still furious. He starts berating her all over again, yelling about her boyfriend, about how she's a terrible friend, about how she never makes time for him anymore. He says she always leaves him hanging. He says she's a horrible person who only hurts people. And then something inside Nestor snaps. Something breaks. He launches a sudden, vicious attack on Catalina. Without warning, he just starts hitting her repeatedly, full force. He causes severe injuries to her face and head. He doesn't stop until Catalina collapses to the floor, unconscious. Now, Nestor could stop here. He could realize what he's done, call for help, and Catalina might survive. But he doesn't stop. Instead, he gets down on the floor next to her unconscious body. He pulls out adhesive tape and binds her hands together. He's trying to prevent her from getting away. Catalina starts to wake up. She's beginning to regain consciousness. And again, Nestor could stop. He could let her go, but he doesn't. He pins her down with his full weight. He pulls out a piece of rope. He wraps it around her throat, and he starts to apply pressure, cutting off her air. He doesn't stop. He keeps going. He watches as the life fades from her eyes. Catalina is fighting, struggling with everything she has, but she gets weaker and weaker until she can't fight anymore. And this is when 21-year-old Catalina Gutierrez takes her final breath and dies. This beautiful, talented, kind young woman, gone forever. She only came over to apologize, to make peace, and he ended her life for it. After committing this absolutely horrific act, after taking Catalina's life, Nestor immediately, almost automatically, goes into cover-up mode. His mind shifts instantly from rage to someone trying to get away with what he's done. He's thinking strategically now, calculating, planning his next moves. First, he looks down at himself and realizes his clothes are covered in evidence of the struggle, Catalina's blood. There's blood on his shirt, on his hands, probably on his pants. He can't be seen like this, so he changes his clothes quickly, pulling off everything he's wearing and putting on completely different clothes. Clean clothes with no evidence on them. Then he takes the bloody clothes he just removed along with the rope he used, and he goes outside. He throws all of it into some bushes near his house, just tosses them like garbage. Like these aren't pieces of evidence in a tragedy, like they're just trash to be disposed of. Then he comes back inside and pulls out his phone, and he starts messaging all of their mutual friends on WhatsApp. He's sending messages to their group chat. He's messaging individual friends too, and he's creating a very specific narrative. He's saying that Catalina completely ghosted him tonight, that she never showed up to meet him at the mall, that he waited for her but she never came, that he has no idea where she is, that she canceled their bowling plans and he doesn't know why. He's creating an alibi, setting up his story, making it look like he's confused and concerned about where Catalina is when he knows exactly where she is. She's gone because of him. Next comes the truly disturbing part. Nestor wraps Catalina's lifeless body in black plastic garbage bags, multiple layers of them. He's treating this girl who was his friend, who was kind to him, who trusted him, like she's something to be hidden away. Then he has to figure out how to get her body out of his apartment without being seen. He waits until he thinks no one is around, and then he carries Catalina's body out to her car. her silver Renault Clio that's parked outside, the same car she drove to his house in, hoping to apologize and fix their friendship. He puts her body in her own car. Then Nestor gets into the driver's seat of Catalina's car and drives off. He drives far outside the city limits of Cordoba, heading to a very remote location, somewhere isolated where he doesn't think anyone will find the car. It takes him maybe 30 or 40 minutes of driving to get to this spot. The whole time, Catalina's body is in the car with him. When he finally arrives at this remote location, far from any houses or buildings or witnesses, he stops the car. He pours alcohol all over the inside of the car, the seats, the dashboard, everywhere. He's trying to destroy any evidence, fingerprints, anything that could connect him to this tragedy. Then he lights the car on fire. He sets it ablaze and watches it start to burn. Then he runs from the scene as fast as he can, leaving everything behind. He probably had arranged for someone to pick him up nearby, or maybe he ran until he could call a ride. But he fled that scene quickly. Later that same evening, back in the city, people are starting to notice that Catalina is nowhere to be seen. She's not responding to messages, she's not picking up her phone, and the first person to become genuinely concerned is her boyfriend, Ezekiel. Because Catalina had told him earlier in the day that she would call him later that night after she was done with bowling with friends. And Catalina was reliable. She was trustworthy. If she said she would call, she would call. She always kept her word. She never just forgot or blew people off. That wasn't who she was. So when it gets later and later and she still hasn't called, Ezekiel starts to worry. Something feels wrong. This isn't like her. So Ezekiel starts trying to get in touch with Catalina. He calls her phone over and over. It rings, but she doesn't answer. He sends her text messages. Hey, are you okay? Call me when you can. Starting to worry about you. No response. Nothing. Radio silence. This is very, very unlike Catalina. So Ezekiel decides to contact her parents because now he's genuinely concerned that something might be wrong. When Ezekiel calls Catalina's parents, they suddenly realize that Catalina still hasn't returned home from her evening out. They had assumed she was out bowling with friends and would be home later, so they weren't worried yet. They thought she was safe and having fun. But now that Ezekiel is calling asking about her, now that they realize she's not responding to anyone, they become immediately and extremely concerned. This isn't like their daughter. Catalina always kept them informed. She always answered her phone. She always let them know where she was. The worry hits them like a physical blow. They try calling her phone themselves, over and over. No answer. They send messages. No response. Their worry quickly turns to fear. Something is wrong. Something is very wrong. So they make the decision to go directly to the police station and report Catalina as a missing person. This is serious. Their daughter is missing. Catalina's entire family rushes to the police station. Her parents, Nora and Marcelo, are there, obviously. Her sister, Lucia, is there, terrified for her best friend and sister. Her boyfriend, Ezekiel, is there too. Everyone who loves Catalina is gathering at the police station, trying to figure out what happened to her, trying to organize a search, trying to do anything they can to find her. And you know who else shows up at the police station? None other than Nestor Soto. Yeah, this absolute psychopath, this perpetrator, actually shows up at the police station pretending to be the very concerned, very worried friend. He rushes over to Catalina's devastated family with this fake expression of shock and worry on his face. And he's saying things like, "Oh my God, I just heard that Catalina is missing. This is terrible. This is awful. I'm so worried about her. What can I do to help? Is there anything I can do? Should we organize a search party?" And he's trying to comfort Catalina's sobbing, terrified parents, hugging them, telling them it's going to be okay, that they'll find her. The same parents who welcomed him into their home countless times, who fed him dinner, who treated him like family, who trusted him completely with their daughter. And he's the one responsible for her death. He knows exactly where she is and what happened to her, and he's standing there pretending to be concerned. It's absolutely disgusting. It's evil in its purest form. And I think Nestor probably thought that if he inserted himself into the search effort, if he showed up and acted concerned and helpful, then no one would suspect him. Because why would the perpetrator show up to help look for the victim, right? Perpetrators don't do that, right? Except they do. They absolutely do. It's actually very common for perpetrators to insert themselves into investigations, to attend vigils, to help with searches, to act concerned. It's a way of controlling the narrative and seeing what information the police have. But things move forward very quickly from this point. While everyone is at the police station beginning to plan a search party for Catalina, her sister Lucia suddenly remembers something. She suddenly has an idea. She realizes that she can track Catalina's phone location through the Find My iPhone app. It's a feature that lets you see where someone's phone is on a map. So right there in the police station, Lucia pulls out her own phone and opens the Find My iPhone app. And it works. Catalina's phone is showing up on the map. It's pinging from a specific location, a remote area outside the city. Lucia immediately shows this to the police. She gives them the exact coordinates, the exact location where Catalina's phone is currently located. The police immediately dispatch officers to go check out that location. They send multiple units. This is now an active missing person case, and they need to investigate any leads immediately. The police drive out to this remote location that Lucia's phone is showing, and this is when they make the horrible, tragic discovery. They find Catalina's silver Renault Clio parked in this isolated area. Now, if you remember, Nestor had set the car on fire, right? He poured alcohol inside and lit it up. So you would think that the police would arrive to find a completely burnt out shell of a vehicle, just charred metal and ash. The car is almost intact. Nestor closed the doors and windows after lighting the fire. No oxygen, the flames died fast. Smoke damage only. All evidence inside untouched. The police carefully approach the vehicle, and they search it thoroughly. And they very sadly, very tragically, discover Catalina's body inside the car. She's been murdered. There's no question about it. Her cause of death is obvious. She's been strangled. There's clear evidence of violence. This is absolutely a homicide. So immediately, the entire situation changes. This is no longer a missing person investigation. This is now a murder investigation, a homicide case. Detectives take over. The crime scene unit is called in. They need to process this car for every piece of evidence they can find. And then the police have the absolutely terrible, heartbreaking job of going back to the police station and informing Catalina's family that their daughter has been found, but that she's been found dead, that she's been murdered. Can you imagine having to deliver that news? Can you imagine being Catalina's parents, her sister, her boyfriend, and hearing those words? Your loved one has been murdered. The family is completely destroyed, devastated beyond words. They're in shock. They can't process what they're hearing. They can't believe it. How could this have happened? Who would do this? Who would want to murder Catalina? Their daughter, their sister, their girlfriend. She was the kindest person in the world. She didn't have enemies. Everyone loved her. This doesn't make sense. Nothing makes sense. The grief and confusion and horror is overwhelming. And Nestor Soto is still there at the police station when the family gets this news, still pretending to be the devastated friend. And now he's hugging Catalina's sobbing mother. He's putting his arm around her father's shoulders. He's crying too, or at least pretending to cry. He's saying things like, "I can't believe this. This can't be real. Not Catalina, not her." The absolute audacity, the sick, twisted evil of this. He ended her life with his own hands just hours ago, and now he's comforting her grieving family. Police start their investigation. They question everyone close to Catalina. Everyone has solid alibis. except Nestor. His alibi is shaky. First, he says he was home all evening. Then he changes his story. He was out with friends. Then he changes it again. He keeps contradicting himself. Police ask to see his phone. Nestor hands it over, thinking he's been clever. But when police check his GPS data, they see he was at the exact location where Catalina's car was found. That remote spot miles outside the city. Police confront him, and Nestor completely breaks down. He confesses to everything. He admits he killed Catalina. He tells them about his obsession with her. He says something just snapped that night. Nestor is arrested and charged with murder. The story becomes huge news across Argentina. Everyone is talking about it. The young influencer murdered by her supposed best friend. There's a massive outpouring of grief for Catalina. In March 2025, Nestor goes to trial. Girls from his high school testify about how he stalked them. His ex-girlfriend Julia testifies. Catalina's friends testify about his creepy behavior. The true picture of Nestor emerges. Years of predatory behavior. Years of never being held accountable. And now it led to murder. During the trial, Nestor shows no remorse. He actually laughs at Catalina's family at one point. He's vile and disrespectful. His mask is completely off. The jury finds him guilty of first-degree murder. He's sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 35 years. Justice was served legally, but it doesn't bring Catalina back. Catalina Gutierrez was kind, beautiful, and deeply caring. She loved her family more than anything. She had an incredible bond with her sister, Lucia. She was always performing music with her dad. She adored her mom. She was studying to become an architect. She was a rising influencer with hundreds of thousands of followers. She had so many dreams, so many opportunities ahead of her. And she was taken at just 21 years old by someone she thought was her friend, someone her family trusted. My heart goes out to her family, her sister, her boyfriend, her friends, everyone who loved her and misses her every day. She was a light in this world. She deserved so much better. Rest in peace, Catalina. You will never be forgotten.